Don't forget to subscribe for daily boxing content, guys. So a couple of weeks ago, Deontay Wilder came out with a statement saying that he would have defeated a prime Mike Tyson, a 1986 Mike Tyson to be in fact. And a lot of fighters came out, past foes, past, opponents of Mike Tyson, guys like Frank Bruno, guys like Lennox Lewis, and have actually disagreed with Deontay Wilder and have sided with, they actually think it would be a tougher fight. And Mike Tyson came out and said that he finally responded to Deontay Wilder's claim of him beating him in his prime. And Mike Tyson came out and he said, Wilder, he talks too much and he talks too much shit. That's exactly what Iron Mike Tyson said. Now, if I'm comparing Mike Tyson and Deontay Wilder, and if I'm not being biased, and if I'm just looking at their styles, and if I'm comparing Mike Tyson, well, first of all, I don't think that Mike Tyson would have to worry about ever fighting Deontay Wilder, because I think Wilder would have most likely ducked a prime Mike Tyson. I mean, Wilder didn't fight a 39-year-old past his prime, Wladimir Klitschko. He spent years not fighting Wladimir Klitschko when people were begging him to fight him, while Wladimir Klitschko was an active champion. And then you had guys like Brian Jennings surpassing Deontay Wilder in fighting and getting in the ring with Wladimir Klitschko. You had guys like Tyson Fury, but people were asking Wilder to fight Wladimir Klitschko. So, I mean, if he was ducking a 37-year-old Wladimir Klitschko, I'm pretty sure he probably would have avoided a prime Mike Tyson. But let's get back to comparing the styles. If we're looking at the styles, I think that Deontay Wilder, now I'm being objective here. I'm not being biased, because normally I would just say Mike Tyson would have brutally knocked out Deontay Wilder. But if you look at the styles, Mike Tyson was a very aggressive guy. He was a short heavyweight. He threw a lot of hooks. He came forward. He was very aggressive. He was an aggressive type of fighter. He was a very aggressive type of fighter, and he threw a lot of hooks. He threw a lot of hooks because he was a short heavyweight, but he was very explosive. Mike Tyson was, in his prime especially, he was a very explosive guy. But in my opinion, if you noticed, when guys would use their height and reach against them, even in his prime, Mike Tyson would go the distance with these guys. And this was a prime Mike Tyson. James Tillis was the first guy to go the distance with a prime Mike Tyson. And if you look at that fight, James Tillis was a taller guy. James Tillis never stood in front of Mike Tyson. James Tillis was using his footwork against Mike Tyson the whole fight. He was being very negative. He was, moving a lot. But the point is, he went the distance. He was the first guy to go the distance with Mike Tyson. And if you look at that fight, what was James Tillis doing? He was moving. He was boxing. I believe Tony Tucker. There was another guy. Totally, his name totally slipped out of my mind. But I believe one of the guys was also Tony Tucker. I believe Tony Tucker went the distance with Mike Tyson. And one thing I noticed is, and this was in his prime, I noticed this with a lot of guys that went the distance with Mike Tyson. In his prime, the guys that went the distance with him were guys that would use their footwork to get away from him. And now, mind you, I wasn't even born when Mike Tyson was around, when he was in his prime. But I saw all his, because I'm one of those people that I'm a really hardcore boxer fan. I saw all his videos when I was a teenager of all his fights. I saw all his fights, his full fights. Since they were so short, because he knocked these guys out in like under 2 rounds, I was able to see all of them, right? I saw all of his fights. And one thing I noticed is every time somebody went the distance with Mike Tyson, it was either because they were using their height and reach against him, and they would move around and use their foot speed to get away from him, or they would hug him. Like when Mike Tyson would get next to them, they would literally hug Tyson. I believe it was Tony Tucker. It was one of these guys. I'm sorry if their name totally slipped my mind, but they will literally hug Tyson. As Tyson will go on the inside, they will hug him. They will grab onto him, and you will literally see, and this was a prime Mike Tyson, you will literally see Tyson look at the referee and complain of all the holding. Like, they will hold him, Klitschko style. They will hold him. Lawrence Okolie style, you know what I'm saying? Some people might even say, you know, Andre Ward style, but they will hold him, and the reason they will hold him because they realize if they hold on him and if they leaned on him, he couldn't let his punches off. And Tyson was dangerous if he was up close to you letting his punches off. So the fact that guys will go the distance with Tyson who would move against him and would lean on him tells me that if Deontay Wilder, because if Wilder were to fight Tyson, Wilder would be moving around the ring. Wilder's a very tall, lanky type of heavyweight, right? Wilder wouldn't be standing in front of Tyson. Wilder would pull a Bermain Stavern 1 on Tyson. Wilder would pull a Johan Duhaupas on Tyson. He'll be fighting negative. He'll be moving. So because he'll be moving, it'll give Tyson a hard time. But I'm not saying Tyson would lose to Deontay Wilder. I actually think that would be an interesting fight. I would have loved to see a prime Mike Tyson versus a prime Deontay Wilder. I would have loved to see it. Obviously, these are just fantasies. You know, Tyson saying he would have knocked out prime Mike. You know, I mean, Deontay Wilder saying he would have knocked out prime Mike Tyson. You know, really doesn't mean anything because we're never gonna see it. Because they're from two different generations, right? I'm pretty sure maybe Mike Tyson, when he was in his prime, maybe he felt like I could have beaten a prime Muhammad Ali. Maybe Muhammad Ali in his prime thought, you know, I could be a prime Joe Louis. You know, maybe Joe Louis in his prime thought I could be a prime Jack Johnson, but none of these guys, you know, they were probably just saying that they could never know. Because obviously they were different generations. It was impossible, right? So this is just talk. But I wouldn't be surprised if Deontay Wilder would have. What I'm saying is I wouldn't be shocked if Deontay Wilder did give a prime Tyson some trouble. Because like I said, a lot of people have this misconception that Mike Tyson was knocking everybody out in his prime. And that's not true. Mike Tyson in his prime was a very, you know, exciting fighter. He knocked out several guys. He was a knockout artist. He was a brutal knockout artist, but he didn't knock everybody out in his prime. He didn't. He went the distance with guys like James Tillis. He went the distance with guys like Tony Tucker, and this was a prime Mike Tyson. You know, and you know, he even lost to Buster Douglas, and Buster Douglas had been knocked out, you know, prior to beating Mike Tyson. So, again, I don't see why Deontay Wilder, him being so athletic as he is, him being so tall and lanky, him having such fast foot speed, I don't see why he wouldn't be able to go the distance with a prime Mike Tyson. Because, like I said, Deontay Wilder is bigger than James Tillis. And James Tillis, I believe, was like 6'3". James Quick Tillis, right? And Deontay Wilder is 6'7". And he's probably just as fast as James Quick Tillis. I'm pretty sure James Quick Tillis was fast because his nickname is Quick, right? I mean, the man's nickname is Quick, so he's probably quick on his feet, but still, you know, I'm pretty sure that, you know, he was probably just as fast as Deontay Wilder is right now. So, yeah, that's all I'm saying. Anyway, guys, let me know what you guys think of this video in the comment section below, and subscribe. I make boxing videos on a daily basis, and I'm out, guys. Thanks for watching. Appreciate it.